Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our foundation planning call. Thank you for taking time out of your busy Saturday morning to come and spend time with our district Rotary Foundation committee members and subject matter experts to help all of us in all of our clubs to know how we can better support our Rotary Foundation. One of our strategic priorities this year, as you'll recall from the Rotary Action Plan, is increase our impact. Increase our impact. And one of the ways that we can increase our impact in our clubs is by increasing our donations and support to our Rotary Foundation. As you know, our Rotary Foundation is the fuel that keeps many of our projects going. And here in Hawaii, we get some of our Rotary Foundation donations back to us 3 years later. And we allocate that back to all of our individual clubs so that they can determine how they want to use those funds on projects that impact our local and our international communities. So thank you, and I look forward to all of the wonderful content that the team will be sharing with us today. And thank you for your participation and your active involvement in the Rotary Foundation.
Thanks, Ted. Appreciate that. All right, do you want to start the slides? Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. The Rotary Foundation is the lifeblood of what we do every single day and what we need to do to continue it. And the Rotary Foundation has been doing good in the world for over 100 years and has given over $4 billion in contributions during that time. And your donations are going to ensure the progress in the future of what we do in Rotary. So thank you for your continued gifts. And we're going to try to work on ways to help educate you folks on what you can do to help improve things at your club with regards to the foundation. Next slide. You've got a fabulous district team that's available for you folks. And I know we're coming up to Rotary Foundation Month. And these are all the people that are responsible for the district committee, myself, as well as Dave Hamill, Dick May, Rick Goba. All of them have different positions all of us have different positions within the Rotary, but any of us can be called upon to speak to your Rotary Club during Rotary Foundation Month in November, if you'd like, or any time of the year. So feel free to reach out to any of us. You can find our contact information in the Rotary D5000 website, and just look under the club leadership group or district leadership team, and you'll be able to find our names and contact us if you need to reach out to us. All right, next. We're happy to have Jeff Cochran join us today, and I'd like to introduce Jeff from Evanston, Illinois. Jeff has been a strong advocate of the foundation for a number of years and has been a friend and what we call him family member of District 5000. So, Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thanks so much, Dave. Really appreciate the invitation to be here with all of you today. Happy Saturday and aloha from Evanston. I had the privilege of joining you guys out on a trip in January to be out there in your home turf. And I guess I didn't screw it up too bad because you guys invited me out to do this thing today. So really happy to be here with you guys. I'm going to share some slides here as we get started, but I just want to get started by saying hello to all my friends and everyone that I had to visit with back out in January, and even more recently had the chance to spend a few days in Spokane, Washington with a few of you. Our fearless district governor was there, and he came sporting this incredibly impressive mustache, and we were a little confused as to whether it was real or not. I'm really a little disappointed that it actually wasn't real, because I think it was a really good look for you, Ted. But if you ever get the chance to put that mustache back on, I'd really love to see it. Anyway, getting started here and talking a little bit about the foundation. Thanks for taking the time out of Saturday morning. to join and talk a little bit about our foundation. It really is what I perceive to be the single greatest charity organization in the world. And the reason why is because it does so much good for so many people across the world. We have a really unique model in Rotary that we like to talk about. And of course, it's all summed up in the phrase annual fund share, right? I'm sure you've heard the phrase before. What it really boils down to is kind of what District Governor Ted spoke to a little bit earlier, and that when you give to the foundation's annual fund, we take those dollars that you give and we invest it for 3 years. And the return on that investment is by and large what we use to cover overhead in the foundation, which means virtually every dollar that you give to the foundation goes back into some grant project, whether it's at the district or the global level, to do some good in the world. And it's a model that has proved to be incredibly successful. It's one that we're really proud of. And we can talk a little bit more about that. If there's any questions you have, please feel free to enter those into the chat and we can talk about those down the road. But ultimately, I feel like in a lot of ways I'm preaching to the choir here today. I know a lot of you are so knowledgeable about the foundation. I'm here to talk a little bit about that today, and we'll get into that a little bit more in the next few slides. But this slide is a little bit more about me, about my role at the Rotary Foundation, a little bit about my professional history. But if there's anything else that you take from this slide, above and beyond anything, please note at the bottom left is my email address and my phone number. As annual giving officer for District 5000, I am a resource to you, whether it's at the district or the club level. If you have any questions about strategies that work in your club throughout the district, you have any questions about your own individual giving or giving for anyone at your club, we can talk about those and help either you individually, your club, or the district meet their giving goals throughout the course of the Rotary year. So like I said, I feel like in a lot of ways I'm preaching to the choir. You're so knowledgeable and have such a vast experience of the Rotary Foundation already, that I want to kind of take it up to the next notch here and talk a little bit about some higher level things when it comes to the foundation. But that said, when we talk about the Rotary Foundation, I think a lot of times the image that we get in our minds is of Evanston, a building, world headquarters. Maybe you think about some of the projects that you've done in the past, but truthfully, I think the heart and soul of the Rotary Foundation is all of you, right? We can talk about all the great work that the foundation does, all the grants that we can put into the world, but really it's the donors who make the foundation possible and make all that work possible. It's all of you. Your generosity, your aloha spirit, if you will, is what makes this thing work. It's what makes it hum. It's the engine that drives this organization and makes it one of the best charities in the world. So what I hope that you are able to do, and part of the way coming out of this presentation is to take this message back to all of the Rotarians at your club, share that message and let them know that they are the most important part of this organization. That being said, every dollar given to the Rotary Foundation is important. You know, we talk so often about these major gifts, big gifts, 5, 6, maybe even sometimes 7-figure gifts that really make a huge impact, that are really impressive, and we love sharing that message throughout the Rotary world. But truthfully, it's every dollar given to the Rotary Foundation that has an impact. And here's some examples of what that actually looks like. All the way down to what's not pictured here, even $10 a month, which is the minimum of what you can give month over month through Rotary Direct to the Rotary Foundation. $10 a month makes an impact. That equates to a polio vaccination that we can send to someone in the world somewhere in another country that, you know, obviously you will probably never meet. But here's some more impact of what your giving gives. $50 if you're able to work that out into your budget creates a water filter. And we've had a lot of impact, especially in Central, South American and Caribbean countries when it comes to water projects. Of course, there isn't a country or an area or a region throughout the world that isn't impacted with a need for clean water. So hugely important. And clean water projects are actually the largest area of focus that people give to and the largest amount of grant projects that we put into place throughout the Rotary world. Speaking of peace and conflict resolution, it takes $1,000 to create a conflict resolution training. We have some incredible peace centers all throughout the world that are doing great work to train leaders in peace. who make an impact, obviously, and those gifts reverberate when those leaders are trained and are able to take up jobs and do that important work throughout the world. Always a need for medical equipment and training, and of course, $200 medical equipment will help save newborns to speak to infant and maternal health, which is another important area of focus for Rotary and the foundation. Just a quick at a glance, some really impressive figures from the Rotary Foundation recently. The most recent Rotary year yielded $142 million given to the annual fund, which is, of course, a direct result of your generosity. So that $142 million that was given to the Rotary Foundation will be invested for the next 3 years. After that 3-year annual fund share investment cycle is up, we'll take the return on that to cover the overhead for the Rotary Foundation. And then virtually all of that $142 million will go back into grant projects. I say virtually because we do take a small percentage to cover initial overhead if needed. But ultimately, the bulk of that goes back to you in the form of district and global grants. Speaking to grant work, almost 1,100 global grants were put in place last Rotary year, which is an impressive figure. And here's a number that always takes me a minute to really process and think about. 33% of Rotarians throughout the Rotary world support the annual fund. Now, if you think about what that means, an implication of the 1.2, 1.3 million Rotarians across the Rotary world, only a third of them give to the annual fund. Imagine the incredible strides we'd be able to make and all the important work that we do across the world. If we can just kick that number up to even 10, 15%, if we can get that up to 50% of Rotarians supporting the annual fund, imagine how many more district and global grants we'll be able to put into place. So it really is an important moment to process and consider what that means, the implications for the organization, and how we can work to improve those numbers. And we are putting some strategies in place to try to make those numbers a little bit better, and we'll talk a little bit about that more as we progress. Looking at last year's, and these were just announced just about a month ago, looking at last year's overall global numbers for fundraising numbers for the Rotary Foundation. Of course, I mentioned that 142 million to the annual fund. Our goal was 150 million, so we fell just shy of that. But that being said, it's still one of the most successful years that we've had across the Rotary world in the history of the Rotary Foundation. So even though we had an incredibly ambitious goal of $150 million, that shouldn't take away from the fact that we've done better almost than any other year that we've had in the Rotary Foundation. We've raised just about $40 million for the endowment last year, and that, of course, goes towards supporting our $2.025 billion goal by 2025, just next year. And the hope then is that once we hit that $2 billion mark towards our endowment in the Rotary Foundation, we'll be able to invest those monies in perpetuity to create money to come back. So regardless of economic circumstances, regardless of the fundraising climate, and the Rotary Foundation will always have the return from that endowment to be able to support the important work that all of you do in the world. And on paper, what we estimate is that a $2 billion endowment for us will return roughly $50 million year over year to be able to be shared throughout the Rotary world, which is a pretty substantial amount of money when you think about the simple fact that our annual fundraising goal is $150 million. If we have $50 million of that coming back to us in an endowment, it just makes every Rotary year that much more successful. Of course, we have our annual goal of $150 million towards Polio Plus. We successfully raised $123 million outright. That, of course, includes the Gates match. As you know, every Rotarians are asked by the organization to raise $50 million outright, and then our relationship with the Gates Foundation has a 2-to-1 match. So every dollar given will be basically doubled by the Gates Foundation, up to $150 million. I know that's short of the $150 million goal, but no worries there. Between DDF transfers from districts and other transfers throughout Rotary, we have met that obligation of $150 million. So even though right here on paper it looks like we fell short, we actually did meet that goal and that target, as we do year over year. And then finally, the other, everybody's favorite category, general enough to raise eyebrows and wonder what that actually means. Other is a category that includes outright giving directly to global grants for the most part. So if there's a project that you're passionate about, there's a grant project that you know that's in place, you can give directly to that global grant. That's exactly what this money is in reference to. So $47 million given directly to grant projects for an overall global total of $417.7 million across the Rotary world. It's really an amazing thing and an opportunity to applaud all of you and your hard work. So congratulations there. Now, I realize that this slide is a little overwhelming. Hang in there with me. We'll walk through it together. This is a 4-year look at what the number of donors and how much they've given in each of these giving categories has given to the Rotary Foundation across each giving sector. Now, if you look at those green bands circled there, you'll notice they coincide with the $1,000 giving level and the $100 giving level. Looking across every single year of these 4 years shown, and even the years that aren't shown, they are the most successful giving categories in the Rotary Foundation, meaning it's the most number of Rotarians giving to the foundation and the most dollar amounts given to the foundation. You'll also note, if you make this connection with me, that it coincides perfectly with our 2 most significant giving levels in the Rotary Foundation, that being at the $1,000 level, the Paul Harris Fellow and Paul Harris Society, and at the $100 level of Sustaining Member and E-Ray. So while we, again, going back to the idea that we often talk about major donors and celebrate the success of all of our really generous donors, especially at the 5 and 6 figure giving levels, the engine that drives our foundation really is the $1,000 and the $100 giving level. Now, what I hope the takeaway is from that is that the Rotary Foundation cannot survive without the success of everyone giving to the foundation. And so while we often talk about major gifts, in many instances, what we found is that it can be intimidating for people who aren't able to give at that major gift level. But if we coordinate a message that focuses on everybody's ability to give and create that buy-in at the foundation, regardless of their economic circumstances, their financial circumstances, if we show clearly that everybody's impact is felt in the Rotary Foundation at where they're able to give, it creates lifelong givers to the Rotary Foundation. Now, what does this mean on a more local level? Let's look at the district and see if this trend correlates. And we see that by and large it does, right? Looking at the $1,000 and the $100 giving level there, those green highlighted squares on the spreadsheet, you'll see that this also corresponds with the most number of donors by and large, with a couple of exceptions, and the greatest dollars given in each of those giving categories. That trend successfully correlates locally to the district and truthfully every district that we work with in the Rotary world, right? There's really virtually no exception to a district in this sense. Of course, there's aberrations year over year. You see the 22-23 year where the 10,000 plus level created a lot of opportunity for people with that capacity. But again, by and large, the weight that carried the most impact are the donors at the $1,000, $500, and $100 giving level. And why is this important? Well, it's again because it relates to our most successful recognitions throughout Rotary. Looking down at the bottom there, the district at a glance, you'll see that some of those more recognized E-Ray, Sustaining Member, Paul Harris Society, and Paul Harris Fellow, some of those recognitions that we celebrate the most are really well represented and strong in the district. And it speaks to the fact that there's a real strong culture of giving in District 5000 across the board. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of those recognitions. I don't want to spend too much time on them because I want to talk about the real impact of the Rotary Foundation here, but they're worth at least a mention. You'll see here, of course, mentioned E-Ray and Sustaining Member. Sustaining Member is an individual recognition for everyone that gives at least $100 throughout the course of the Rotary year. E-Ray correlating to a club recognition in the same giving category, a minimum of $25 given by each member of the club, but a per capita giving level of $100 across the club. And then the club will receive an E-Ray banner at the end of the Rotary year. Paul Harris Fellow, of course, is our most recognized recognition, not to be redundant. But for every $1,000 level, either outright giving or points or combination of the two, someone will move to the next Paul Harris Fellow level up to Paul Harris Fellow +8. And then, of course, we start getting into major donor territory when it comes to the $10,000 giving level. Paul Harris Society, of course, is a community of members who have made a decision to give $1,000 year over year to the Rotary Foundation. And then along with your Paul Harris Fellow pin, you get a Paul Harris Society chevron, which you can attach to that pin and be recognized for both of those communities of donors. But really, right now, I want to talk briefly about the impact and why it is that we're talking about all of these recognitions, all of these giving levels, and what this actually means. When I talk about how you are the Rotary Foundation, it's the dollars given that really equate to the outcomes in the Rotary Foundation. And of course, when we talk about outcomes in Rotary, we're talking about grant work. Most recently, even just a couple of years ago, we introduced programs of scale. These are significant projects that were able to be scaled up to the point of their success, showed promise in making them larger, more sustained projects. Excuse me. So we developed programs of scale, which allowed us to afford even more dollars to these programs that showed such promise. And that equates to $2 million in the form of monies to start these larger scale projects. The very first of these was Partners for a Malaria-Free Zambia, which originated, in fact, out of a club in our own zones. Zone 27, it was the Club of Federal Way, who started this project in cooperation with a few other nonprofit organizations and governmental organizations. Initially, the project focused on eliminating malaria in Zambia. Because of the project, its initial program of scale launch, we were able to expand this project even more with an announcement just about a year and a half ago. Rotary International President Gordon McNally at the Zone Institute in Zambia itself announced that we were scaling this program up even further to include 5 Central African countries to eliminate malaria across that area and that region. And so what that promise shows is that we have an impact in the areas in which we work, and we're really proud of that fact. There's a few others that have been programs of scale grants that have been given out since then. Of course, Together for a Healthy Families in Nigeria, that following year, 21-22, United to End Cervical Cancer in Egypt in the 22-23 year, and most recently, Partners for Water Access and Better Harvests in India, which is a water project to enhance farming in India. So we're really proud of these projects. And this is some of the larger scale stuff that we're able to put in place because of your generosity. One project that I'll wrap up with here, I know my time is just about up, but I want to talk about this project because it's one of my favorites to talk about. It's one that has had a lasting impact and is still relevant to this day. Of course, we can't turn on the news or open a newspaper without hearing about the war in Ukraine. But really, the start to that war began roughly about 15 years ago now. If you remember back, it was a real brief flash of a news brief that happened over just a matter of a couple of days, maybe a week. Russia invaded a small territory in Ukraine called Crimea. They annexed that territory. It was over just about as quickly as it began, but of course, it was an armed conflict, right? And people in Ukraine and Russia both took up arms and fought in this conflict. And what happens at the end of those conflicts is that there's devastation on both sides. But people around the Ukrainian families in this area saw the devastation that was happening and they wanted to do something about it. And so who was there to pick up the pieces? It was Rotarians, right? And so they saw a need, and the Polish district, neighboring nearby Rotarians, saw what was happening in these families. They wanted to help, especially the kids and the families that were affected by this conflict. And so they launched a global grant that allowed for the start of a summer camp to bring these kids to and allow some healing to begin. Not only did they bring these kids, but some of the money afforded them the opportunity to bring in social workers and psychologists. And so they brought these professionals in as well to help these kids heal. And while, of course, it didn't solve all their problems, there was the beginning of what became the healing process for these children. And so when they went back home, where they saw the devastation all around them, they at least felt a little bit of hope and a little bit of healing that started as a result of this global grant. And that really is what happens as a result of the work of all of you. When you put global grants into place, it changes lives. And sometimes we even get to see the implications of what that looks like. So with that, my time is up. I will turn it back over to our moderator, and I'll hang around a little bit longer. If there's any questions that come up, I'm happy to work those over with you guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff, for sharing. All right.
There is one question in the chat about the 3-year time frame and investments. So if Jeff can answer that question real quick, and then we can go on with district grants.
Let's see. It says, why 3 years for investments? Are there some data on the 3-year time for investments? How do you then determine how much goes back to each club? Really great questions. So I'll take the easiest part first. How do we determine what goes back to each club? And that really is left up to the districts to decide. Every district has their own process to suss out the DDF that comes back to them as a result of this process. I know District 5000, if I'm not mistaken, Dave, we just talked about this, uses a percentage of what the club gave year over year. And that amount, that percentage based off of the total DDF is what comes back to each club to use for grant work. Some districts do it differently, but I know that District 5000 does it in that manner. When it comes to the time frame of what that looks like, it allows us a real full opportunity to use the dollars given that first initial year. The 3 years allows the return on investment to build up to the point where we can use it effectively for overhead and return as much as we can back to each district in the form of DDF, right? So it's become kind of a timeline that's proven cost effective for us in the format that we have.
Yes, and Jeff is correct. We basically use a 3-year average for our district. So we take the average for the 3 years that people have given, and that 3-year average is the percentage that we use for the money that is returned to our district that is allocated to each of the clubs. So if a club has 4% giving, then that 4% is the percentage that we use as far as how much money is given back to that particular club from the funds that we get from RI for DDF. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. Hopefully that answers your questions. I know it's a little complicated. So I'd like to introduce Patty to talk about district grants. She's one of our newest committee members and has been thrown into the pen with regards to doing district grants. So I appreciate all the work that she's been doing. So Patty, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Dave. Good morning, everyone. We just wanted to quickly share with you the breakdown of Rotary grants for this year. And I can't see the slide. There it is. And it's this Rotary year, so 2024. We awarded $78,000 in funding to 114 grant projects. And then here is the breakdown. As you can see, a lot of it went to education projects, whether it was dictionary or school supplies or working with children, students in school or organizing them, to then the next one is community development. As you can see, that 14,700. Again, there were some great ideas, great projects that were presented. Whether it's something like providing a Thanksgiving meal or doing a holiday project with a community group, so on and so forth. Next was Peace Through, which includes RILA, and then on down we have health projects, water projects, projects that have to do in general with environment, and then economic development. In 2024, we received the 69,857. Any questions? Thank you.
That's great. All right. And Arjun, can you go ahead and share with us a little bit about what's happening in the global grant arena?
Sure, Dave, thanks. Aloha, everyone. Good morning. You can see my photo and this shirt. I'm the same person. So when it began, our DG, Ted, really emphasized Rotary's first action plan, increasing the impact. And Jeff has spent a long time showing some of the examples. What does it mean? So the impact is more like multidimensional, but it has, what does it mean? So what it means is a more like a lasting, long-term kind of impact. And that's where the global grants come. It's a slightly bigger project, and making sure that the project is long-lasting, impactful, and that's why we do the global grants. Rotary has global grants. The global, basically, the word is very similar to our last name, international. It doesn't mean it has to be other countries. It can be in our district. Actually, we're working on one of the projects in Maui. So, for example, here are some of the examples. 74,000. So this was the allocation, the DDF coming from this. And so this is going to go to different projects. I believe there is next slide, Naomi. Okay, yeah. So here, sorry, I didn't know about this slide. So these are some of the grants we completed. For example, from last year, this is not complete, but it's under progress. So the PNG provide drinking water to look at the numbers. 700 nursing students, 30 faculty, and 3,000 rural grazers in Papua New Guinea, $72,000 project. So Nepal, there were 2 projects. Our clubs were participated. So this was like a Oman led in a very, very remote. When I said remote, from the capital Kathmandu, either you have to take 2 flights and 3 hours drive, or 1 flight and 11-hour dirt road drive. So this remote place is going and doing this project. In that villages, sadly, all the men are gone somewhere for work, and then it's all led by women in the village. So Thailand, grow rural healthcare, $74,000. Ghana, water and sanitation. This is a really big project. So this is not all the money coming from our district. It's so several clubs and districts are involved. So this is the global grant is one of the place. Significant amount of dollar going, your giving is going, and these are very, very impactful projects. If you want to know more about global grants or want to participate or anything like that, Jeff mentions you can directly even give to grants. Please let me know. So the global grant in general, it's just similar to old saying, the give a man a fish versus teach how to fish. So the global grant is about teaching how to fish.
Thanks, Arjun. Arjun is correct on those global grants, but go ahead and finish up, and I'll share a little bit something else on that.
Okay, these are some of the examples. So you see on the top right, that's from Papua New Guinea. Yeah, all the photos from Papua New Guinea. There are more, Nami? Please go ahead.
No, this is the only one slide on the pictures.
Just to show you example, you can see Murray Visser here, and actually this is some of the photos are recent. Oh yeah, so the October 12 is big date. Anyone working on global grant? I already know we have 5 or 6 global grant coming. This is the global grant. We work with the 2 clubs, like international and local. There is a local host, primary contact. Let me know the summary of our project you are working on, and this is the where you present highlight your clubs grant and seek money from the clubs. And our district, the club, there is a deadline for the pledging commitment. The November 1st is our internal district rule, and you make a commitment, not necessarily payment. You don't have to pay. Make a commitment by November 1.
Thanks, Arjun. Appreciate that. One of the things we want to make sure we kind of get out to everybody is that we don't expect every club to start a global grant. In fact, it would probably be impossible to fund a global grant from every club because largely in part, excuse me, we need the funds from other clubs to actually fund these global grants. So what we're looking for is every club has allocated funds, or almost every club has allocated funds for your global grant that needs to be matched or could be matched. And we're looking for every club in the district to be selecting one of the grants that we're sponsoring within our district to be able to go ahead and fulfill that obligation. Because again, without your funds, these grants would not be funded and they would take longer to get completed. So thanks, Arjun, for all of your efforts. And club members, is as simple as putting your name down and saying, yes, we'd like to allocate our $300 or our $700 or thousands of dollars to that. We also have some other dates coming up. October 24th is World Polio Day, and Roz will be speaking about that in a little bit more. And then October 26th is the mandatory grant qualifications for PE and club reps. So I'd like to see foundation shares in there if you can, but club reps can be anybody else besides the president-elect, but we need the president-elect at that meeting along with another rep. So we have two people that are qualified for that mandatory qualification process. Otherwise, you would not be able to spend your funds for the next fiscal year. And then on November 2nd, we've got the Rotary Foundation training, which is a little bit more about in depth about the ins and outs of all the Rotary functions that we've got, and some more deeper dive into the different areas. Next. All right. As you folks know, we do have, there a lot of people have their own foundations. They have we have a district foundation, but when we're talking about TRF or the Rotary Foundation, there's really three major areas. It's the Polio Plus Fund, which is for now. It's basically meaning we're spending that money immediately for eradicating polio. And so the money comes in quickly and it goes out quickly. And every single year that money is spent to basically deal with the last cases and try to eradicate polio. Roz Cooper is responsible for the Polio Plus Fund, and Dick May is in charge of the annual fund. And the annual fund is what most of our clubs are getting when we say we want to give to the annual fund so that the money comes back as shared. So we want to make sure we mark that as shared. And when we do that, the money comes back to the clubs so that it's used as matching funds for us in both match and no matched funds, so that we have those monies, extra monies. And basically that means that your dollar is going a lot further than it would be if you just came out of your pocket and paid for it. And the other one, which is very important, is the endowment. We're trying to get our goal of $2.025 billion by the year 2025, which is just around the corner. And that's the goal that Rotary International has sent. And our district is doing well, but we can still use as many people as possible to fill those coffers and get more people involved with the endowment side. All right, next slide. I'll give it to Roz about Polio Plus and the upcoming World Polio Day.
Okay, thank you. Every year, we always get a questions what and how, what's the money used for when we support polio, the polio fund, polio eradication, and how is it used? So every year, over 650,000 children are spared lifelong paralysis thanks to the continued support and efforts that you make happen, your contributions to polio eradication. Since 1985, nearly 3 billion children have received the oral polio vaccine. And since 1998, the distribution of essential vitamin A, which like polio is administered orally, has saved more than 1.25 million children. And every year, not just 1 year, but every year, 82 million doses of vitamin A, 64 million doses of measles vaccine, 34 million deworming tablets, 7 million doses of yellow fever vaccine, 5 million doses of tetanus toxoid vaccine, and 4 million insecticide-treated bed nets are delivered alongside oral polio vaccines during polio eradication activities. We also depend on thousands, next, please. Oh, you did. We also depend on thousands of public health workers to be trained and have been trained to investigate cases of acute pocket paralysis and to manage massive immunization programs. And because of polio eradication initiative, systems of rules and procedures that ensure temperature is maintained and controlled during storage and transit of the vaccine has been strengthened. When you're delivering the vaccine to different parts of the villages, you're way out in areas where there may be no electricity. So we have to make sure that the vaccine has been temperature controlled and is maintained until it is inoculated into the children. Polio eradication is helping countries to develop public health and disease surveillance systems useful in the control of other vaccine preventable infectious diseases. And the disease surveillance system, which is a network of 146 laboratories and trained personnel, help track measles, rubella, yellow fever, meningitis, COVID-19, and other deadly infectious diseases. Immunization campaigns for polio have been used as opportunities to provide other essential health services. The surveillance systems and their global laboratory networks that support will continue to support the surveillance of other diseases long after polio has been eradicated. A country being polio-free does not mean we stop there. We will need to each year immunize 400 million children in 600 countries and have surveillance in place to test the environment for the polio virus. Keep in mind, there's lots of movements from countries to country, especially today, during these difficult times around the world. And we need to make sure the polio virus is not being transmitted during these travels. Polio eradication is a cost-effective public health investment, and it benefits accrue forever. On the other hand, as many as 200,000 children can be paralyzed annually in the next 10 years if the world fails to capitalize on the more than $19 billion already invested in the eradications. Your support is vital. Next slide, please. And your contributions matter. Next. Your contributions plus the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have a triple impact. Your contributions are matched 2 to 1. So whatever you give to the foundation for polio, ending polio, is going to make money in the long run. So please support the foundation. Next. In 1985, Rotary made the historic decision to immunize all the world's children against polio. Today, the world is nearly polio-free. Through the continued leadership of the United States, that of affected countries, civil society, and partner agencies, we will fulfill the promise of a polio-free world. Through you, your commitment, your support, your contributions, your believing, we will fulfill this legacy. And know that the world cannot do this without you. Thank you.
Thanks, Roz. Appreciate that. What we wanted to do is leave some time for clubs to share what's been working well for your club, or get some ideas from yours, and just to encourage giving within your club. Rotary Direct is probably one of the easiest and painless ways to give to the Rotary Foundation. I don't know about you folks, but I have at home reoccurring bills that happen all the time, and I really hate taking out the checkbook and writing a check every single time that bill comes in. So a lot of that is being paid with direct funds, which just automatically comes out of our accounts and pays it. And I found the same way works well for Rotary. I have all of my contributions paid out regularly on a quarterly basis for both polio as well as annual giving. And I really want to encourage you club members to do that. So as foundation chairs and presidents, work together to try to increase that percentage of people that are doing, because it makes it a lot easier. It's a lot painless, and it becomes a consistent thing. You can always change it. You can always increase it if you desire, or if you need to decrease it. Annual fund, money that returns to us supports our projects. So we want to encourage to get more of our total membership involved in giving. So E-Ray, every Rotarian every year, can be done as simple as $25 per person. And get the club buy-in on this, get the board's buy-in on this, and then go out there and educate your club. Give the foundation chair a couple minutes or 1 minute every single meeting or every other meeting to basically share this. And once you get these goals out there and you set these goals, it's easier for you as the foundation chair to stand up in front of the members and say, hey, we need your help on this. This is our goal. This is what we've pledged. You know, I know clubs set goals. Sometimes their goals are a little bit smaller than they should be. And that doesn't really help anybody, because if you've reached that small goal and you basically have a hard time going back to the club members and asking them to give when you've already told them you've met your goal. But the goal was probably 60% lower than it should be. Polio Plus, you know, what are we doing? What are you doing for Polio Plus? How are you folks generating funds for that? Paul Harris Fellows, Paul Harris Society, Benefactors, Bequest Society, Triple Crown Society, White Hat Society. These are all different items that you can use to help encourage people to give. These are all different awards that can be given out and celebrated within your club. Let's go ahead and next one, please. So what can we do? What can we do within our clubs? Increase awareness about the Rotary Foundation in the club. Share the foundation goals with your club members. That means get buy-in from your board of what your goals are for both polio as well as annual giving. Get the board to approve that, then be in front of the club and asking them. And if it's a situation where you're trying to do E-Ray sustaining, which means $100 for every member in your club, say that is our goal. And that's what we want everybody to give, is a minimum of $100. And that's a great milestone to go after. Try to get 100% of your members to give $100. And if you can't, see if the other club members are willing to help out to reach that goal. Use recognition points to encourage club giving. If you are trying to get people to give, maybe you can say, hey, we'll give you equal number of recognition points for every dollar that you give. And openly celebrate these foundation accolades, these awards. Do that in front of your club members. Increase giving to the Rotary Foundation. How do we encourage people to give more than they did the year before instead of less? And promoting polio awareness through the October 24th World Polio Day, and understanding the foundation reports and how to use them. I almost want to have Benson a session on just that, you know, for foundation chairs to know what reports, because if you haven't been a foundation chair, you're going to find there's a litany of different reports that are available to you that weren't there before, because those are reports that you didn't have access to. So I'd like to open this up to any of the other club members there are on the panel that would like to share some of the things that they saw that were successful, or if they're having any problems, and how we might be able to help you, steer you in the right direction. Any questions on the question chat box? No. Okay. Dick, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you. First of all, great presentation, and a huge mahalo to Jeff for his presentation. A couple of comments from a guy who now entering his fourth year as annual giving chair. It's a fun job because we see what we do. But I just want to clarify a couple of things. You saw a lot of programs on the slide just recently. Remember that we're dealing with one foundation, one entity that we give to, the Rotary Foundation. So you may give to Polio Plus, you're giving to the foundation. When you give to the annual fund, you're giving to the foundation or 501c3. And if you do a bequest, you also are giving to the foundation. Many of those other programs that we talked about are forms of recognition for donors at different levels. I applaud our district governor and the AGs and the clubs for setting goals across the board this year. All the clubs have goals in. Even if you have a goal, look at it and see if you can exceed that goal a bit, because what we discovered last year was that clubs that gave, that did not establish a goal, gave only 1/4 as much per capita as clubs that established a goal for the foundation. And you can't make your goal unless you get clubs really to step up to that amount of money. So please look at doing that. And again, to foot stomp it, Rotary Direct is an easy way to do this. The money builds up over time, and every club should at least be an EREY club. When you get a chance to do something like I just did, which is come back from a grant in Papua New Guinea and see how much difference it makes on the ground, it's pretty amazing and pretty easy to feel motivated. So please help, give generously. I'm on tap to talk to 4 clubs in the next month or so. All of us are scheduled as presenters. If you need us, please use us. Mahalo.
Hey, David, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a question to everyone that's online. I sent out a newsletter, and in the newsletter, I mentioned some of the projects that some of your club have identified to do for World Polio, as we're going to call it World Polio Month, which is going to begin on the 1st of October. So how many of you have identified projects? If you can just show by raising your hand or looking at working with doing a project for your club for World Polio Day or World Polio Month. Are any of you planning? Dick, you have. Naomi, you have.
Yep.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is try to put out a newsletter almost every week. And in that newsletter, I'm going to list the club and I will list the projects that they have so that you can get some ideas of what you want to do and how to make impact with your club. And you may see ideas that you might want to incorporate in what your club's doing, or you may have ideas yourself. Doesn't have to be anything on a grand schedule, a grand scope. It could be something as simple as cupcakes for a cause, a purple pinky for polio. Anything you can come up that's going to create awareness and get your club members involved and contribute to polio eradication, because that's the bottom line. And we're not immune to it. With all the countries that are having issues right now, they are leaving and they are going places to get away from that. Are they immunized against polio?
And you can support someone else's World Polio Day event and attend theirs if you don't have one for yourself. So feel free to invite yourself to one of their events and help fund it through that process.
Hey, Dave, I think Jeff has some ideas of where raising awareness in the clubs, and then Benson has some call to action tips at the end.
All right. Jeff?
Thanks, Naomi. Yeah, absolutely. So at the club level, we can talk about some specific strategies to help drive giving in the club. Some really simple and easy ones that you can put in place include something like a points match campaign. I don't know if you knew this or not, but every club has access to points, Paul Harris points. And you can use those to incentivize giving in your club, whether it's a match. So for example, if you want to underscore the importance to newer Rotarians in your club about the foundation and why we give to it, you can say, hey, if you give $500 for the first $500 you give to the Rotary Foundation, our club will match that with 500 points to get you to your first Paul Harris Fellow level. You could run November is Foundation Month traditionally. You could run a campaign strictly in the month of November for a points match campaign. For everyone across the club who gives, you can match their giving with points to help, again, drive their recognition level to the next Paul Harris Fellow level. There really is only a limit to points usage by your imagination and what the club wants to do with them. If your club has been successful in the past and has reached E-Ray and will continue to reach E-Ray year over year, you could maybe suggest kicking it up to the next notch and say, I want our club to be 100% Paul Harris Fellow level this year, which I've worked with a few clubs over the years to make that happen for them as well. 100% Paul Harris Fellow Club is a club, as the name implies. Every member in the club is a Paul Harris Fellow level, at least Paul Harris Fellow, if not more. And once the club achieves that recognition, you get another banner that your district governor comes around and gives to the club at their district governor visit, talks about how you are their favorite club for the day. They're contractually obligated to say that, of course. And then you get bragging rights that you're a Paul Harris Fellow club. So there's a lot of different ways to do that as well. There's other ones that we can talk about too. If it strikes you as something you want to try to put in place, give me a call or shoot me an email, and we can talk a little bit more about those particularly.
Great. I see Lorraine has put out there the polio pig or piggy bank. Piggy banks are great ways to put them at the entrance of your meetings and have people just contribute and encourage them to use those piggy banks at other places, like their places of business and things of that nature, and then bring all the money in at the end of that period. Benson, did you want to say some things?
Sure, just a couple of last things. I'll tell you that Lorraine's piggy bank program is really effective because I've been there when that piggy bank's going around and it gets pretty full. So last couple things. The reason why we're doing this today and it's still September is to give everybody in our district the ramp up into November. So November is Rotary Foundation Month, like Jeff was saying, traditionally. So there's all kinds of different ways in which you can approach that. But the main thing is that we have to take the initiative, and there's everybody on this call is willing to do it, is to get people to understand the why, right? And like Dave was saying, maybe it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 minute, a reason why everybody needs to participate. I think something that has worked really well in our clubs is in my club is that we look at foundation giving as the way to participate outside of our local contributions. All of us know locally here, we give a lot of money to all of these local things that are going on around us, and we like for our money to stay here. But lots of people don't give to causes outside of that. So investing in the Rotary Foundation, terrific way to do that. And so, and especially if you break it down to a small dollar amount, so $10 a month, that's $120 a year. And I would say probably everybody can probably afford to do that. So give them a good why, and then make it easy for people. I know our foundation chair before used to come with all the forms all filled out. So all you have to do is sign it, put the amount in, put your number in, and then we distribute them, put them all in there. So that's our basically our call to action. We have to do something during November, because November is Foundation Month, and now we have the tools and the support to do that. So that's it.
Great.
Hey, Naomi, any final things, Dave?
Great. Well, the other thing is to make sure you help remind your members if they're close to their next threshold, if they're close to their next Paul Harris Fellow, let them know, hey, they only have $100 more to go to get to their next Paul Harris Fellow or to become a major donor. So, look at those reports. Those reports will help you, provide you with that information so that you can then let those people know that they may not be aware that they are at their next threshold level or pretty close to their next threshold level. All right. I'd like to thank everybody for your time today and everybody's efforts on the committee, as well as all of you for your success with the Rotary Foundation. And we're here to answer any of your questions.
Hello.
Questions?
Hi, yeah, Dave, this is Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
Cabral, hi. Sorry, I'm driving in a truck up to Volcano for Peace Day. The videos that we saw today, particularly those from Jeff when I was stationary, I got to watch those. Can we get copies of those that we can distribute to our clubs, and perhaps our club foundation chairs and our presidents can incorporate those in one of their meetings coming up where they can help better explain foundation, and those are concise and very factual and interesting. And I think that might help our new members and even our longer term members better understand the importance of that $25 or that $100 or $1,000 gift that they work up to for both polio as well as for E-Ray and Paul Harris. So I'd like to see if we can get those for everybody. Thank you, David. Thank you, Jeff, everybody.
This recording and the PowerPoint will be on the district website under webinar recordings. If you want a shorter version customized for your club, we have those also, and we have all of these subject matter experts that are willing to go to your club to do a presentation. So we're at the 10 o'clock mark. Thank you, Jeff, and everyone. Ted, do you want to?
Thank you.
Ted, do you want to wrap us up?
Well, thank you, everyone, and a big thank you to our District Rotary Foundation team, and also a big thank you to Jeff Cochran for joining us this morning. And I look forward to hearing and seeing all of the wonderful projects that we do as a result of our Rotary Foundation giving, and as we all work together to increase our impact. So thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Oh.
Aloha, everyone. Have a great day.
Aloha.